Hi, I'm Paul Royer, and today I'd like to take just a few minutes of your time to show you how you can take advantage of the RESTful protocol in Thriftly, and I'd like to show you a few cool features that we've added to our test interface in the process. Now for this example, I will be using our string services API that we've used in previous examples, and I'm using the C# version of that API. We do have a video on how we built this API, so you can go check that out. But we're going to go over it real quick here just so we know what we're looking at with our API. So we have two function calls in our string service API. We have a join call that joins two strings, and we have a toUpper call that takes a string and makes it uppercase. Now you'll notice here they both are marked as published, so they will show up in our API once we boot it up here in Thriftly. So let's do that now. So when I hit start, it's going to load up our Thriftly developer. And there we go. Here's our Thriftly developer window. Now this should look familiar if you've been following along with our previous videos. There's a couple different things here that we've added, but I'm going to go into more detail on these in future videos. But this one's really exciting, JWT configs. So look forward to that video in the very near future. And also we added this endpoint info button. If you ever lose the window with the API information, you have a button to click on now where you can pull that back up. Now as you can see here, it's actually offline right now because we haven't started our server. So let's do that now. We're going to do a standard HTTP with JSON RPC, and we want to make sure our gateway is enabled, and you choose one of your gateways. I'm going to be choosing Texas here, and I'm going to hit Start Thriftly. And you'll notice it'll load a new tab. It's the same page here, except now it's live. So you'll see here that it's online now, and we have our services. So our string service is listed there. Let's click on that. Here's our calls that we wanted to publish, the join that takes two strings and the toUpper. So let's hit test API, and this is what I'm excited to show you guys. So here we go. You'll notice this has been updated. We can now, in real time, choose different protocols right here in the test interface. Now because Thriftly is multi-protocol, there you go. You can test them all right here. You don't have to restart your server. You don't have to do anything special. They're all available from our one process that's running right now. So let's do an RPC call to see what that looks like. Let's join two strings, and let's send that. And you can click this raw button up here to see the raw request. So you can see it's a standard JSON RPC call, version 2.0 with an ID. Our method is join, and our parameters are string 1 and string 2. And here's our response down here. And you'll notice this special server protocol header. That's letting the server know which protocol we're going to be sending and expecting back. It's always good to include that because it is multi-protocol. By default, it will return JSON RPC because that's what we just selected in our developer, but it's always good to include that just so you make sure you get the right protocol that you're looking for. So right now we can go ahead and switch to SOAP and do the same call. Let's join two strings, hit send, and you'll notice now our server is sending back XML. Because right here you'll notice in the header we said, hey, we want SOAP this time. We want SOAP XML. So there's our body that we sent it, and here's our response in SOAP XML that we got back. Now we've kind of covered those in the past, but the one I'm excited to show you now is our RESTful protocol. So you'll notice here in our body we have string 1 and string 2 again in JSON. So let's do it one more time. Let's join two strings. Now we'll hit send, and you'll notice our body success. Let's join two strings. And if we click on our raw button now, you'll see here it looks a little different. This isn't RPC anymore. It's actually just a straight up JSON object in our body. But the method is up here as it should be because it's a RESTful call. So we're making a post call to string service /join. And we have our let's join two strings. And our response is a simple JSON object, let's join two strings. So that's just a little really basic example of the REST protocol in action. That required no additional code. So that's just based off of this original code that we wrote. It's taking these two parameters here, This one's taking the one parameter. So this code right here that we wrote in C# using our Thriftly library is serving all three of those protocols right now. So that's pretty cool. Now that's a post call, but let's jump over to our demo and look at an example of a get call. So if you're not familiar with our demo, if you go to thriftly.io/demo, we have this property tracker demo up. So you can choose a different backend language, a different gateway to see the performance difference and the speed between the gateways depending on your region. And you can also choose from our different protocols here. So if we go ahead, let's clear out our network tab over here in our developer window. So let's clear this, and I'm going to select JSON RPC. So it did a call here using JSON RPC. So if we look right here at our request payload, you'll see here that in our parameters we sent it a search object, and we did some pagination there. So that's what generated this from our server. So that was a JSON RPC call. It was the search locations call. Now watch, if I click on one of these though, what it's actually going to do is it's going to do a RESTful GET call for one specific record. So here's the address that it called. So you'll notice here it actually did the property tracker, location search, get location. So our method is now in the address, and we can also pass parameters in the address. So let's look at that one. So there you go. There's your query string parameter. We passed an ID in the URL in the query string to get a specific record. Now, the exciting part about being able to do RESTful GET calls is caching. So that was one of our main motivations for getting this feature added in there, so you can make RESTful GET calls to pull records and do some caching. But the cool thing is you can mix and match these. So even if I come up here and I say, you know what, I need to get SOAP for this specific application, but I just want to do a RESTful GET call to grab this one record, it doesn't matter. It's all running off the same server at the same time. Now there is one caveat I'd like to mention when you're designing your RESTful calls in Thriftly, and that is that traditionally when you make a GET call, all the parameters are to be passed in a query string in the URL. And a query string can only really represent primitive data types. It's not really possible to represent complex objects with multiple properties in a URL query string. So when you design those calls, you're going to want to make sure that your parameters are all primitive types. Now, for example, right here when we looked at our search locations call, this one would not really be a prime candidate for making a RESTful GET call because it takes a complex search object with multiple properties as its parameter. So let's look at the source code for that and you'll see what I'm talking about. Right here, let's go down to that call. That is our, let's get all locations. Search locations, here it is. So you can see here the search locations function call that corresponds to the API call. It takes a tLocation service criteria object, which has multiple properties associated with it. So then we, in the call, we pull out those individual properties from that object. Whereas if we come up here and look at the get location call that we use to pull an individual record, it just takes a single primitive string called ID. And so coming back over here to our code, that's where we clicked on a single entry and we're able to pass ID as a query string parameter because it's a simple primitive type. So keep that in mind when you're designing your RESTful calls, that you're going to want to use primitive parameters, primitive data types for your parameters. And other than that, the calls should just work just like they do with all the other protocols. Now, we are still working on this and we plan on adding some additional support and features to it, and we're also going to be providing some additional documentation for the RESTful interface. So make sure you look forward to that. And in the future, I will be doing a video very soon on the JWT support that we just added to Thriftly. We're really excited about it, so look forward to that video. So I hope you enjoyed that, and give it a try and tell us what you think. We always appreciate feedback. You can go to support.thriftly.io and let us know if you're having any issues, any questions, and we'll do what we can to help you guys out. Thanks. Have a great day.